Привет, студенты! Are you staying stuck at the beginner level in Russian despite learning for months? Here's what's really going on. It's almost never the case that you are not smart enough or not working hard enough. Most stuck learners are actually the ones who study plenty. The problem is that a few specific habits are quietly working against you, and because no one ever points them out, you keep repeating them month after month. That's why the effort goes in, but the progress doesn't come out. So today I'm going to show you the 5 mistakes I see that keep beginners stuck over and over with hundreds of my students. And just so we're clear, these aren't just about pronunciation or rolling your R. These are 5 learning mistakes the way you're studying. And as we go through them, I think you will recognize yourself in at least 2 or 3 of them. But I'm not just going to name them and leave you feeling guilty. For every single one of these 5 mistakes, I will give you the exact fix, a simple change you can make this week, so that by the end of this video you will know precisely what's been holding you back and what to do instead. And by the way, I'm Polina, I'm a native Russian speaker and I've been teaching complete beginners every single day for years. In the meantime, I have watched exactly which habits make someone take off and which ones quietly keep them stuck. The students who fix these don't just improve a little, they finally start enjoying Russian instead of fighting it. So let's start with mistake number 1. Mistake number 1 is the one that genuinely frustrates me as a teacher because it's so easy to avoid and I watch it hold people back every single week. I will get a new student who tells me proudly that they already know 200 words, and they do out loud. But the moment we open a real text, a simple menu or a sign or a message, nothing. They can speak more Russian than they can read, and it always traces back to the same starting point. At the beginning, they skipped the alphabet and leaned on the English spelling just to get going faster. I understand why. It feels efficient, yes, but it's a debt. And the longer you put off the alphabet, the bigger that debt gets. Because everything real in Russian, every text, every subtitle, every chat is in Cyrillic. Keep it and you've just put a ceiling over your own head without realizing it. So if that's you, here's what I would do tomorrow. Drop the transliteration, literally. I know it's scary. For a few days, you will read slowly, letter by letter, that's normal, that's the point. It's only 33 letters and a good chunk already looks familiar. Most of my students can read within a week, and once you can read, everything else you're already doing suddenly starts to stick. And to make all of this super simple, I have made a free 7-day unstuck plan. It takes the 5 fixes from this video and turns them into some tiny actions. 10 minutes, 1 week, and you will actually feel yourself moving again. It's free. Link is in the description. Start it tomorrow and you will have fixed all 5 before this time next week. Okay, mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is one I have a lot of sympathy for because it looks exactly like progress, which is what makes it so dangerous. When learners contact me and tell me they are stuck, I ask them a simple question: show me what you are using to learn. And what comes back is almost always a pile. Duolingo in the morning, a different app on the commute, 5 YouTube channels, tons of PDFs they downloaded and never finished, a grammar book, page 12. Each one might be good on its own, but together they don't add up to anything because none of them knows what the others taught you. So you're busy every single day, you feel productive, you keep your streak, and 6 months later you're roughly where you started. That's the trap. Collecting resources feels like learning, but it's really just learning the same beginner basics over and over from 5 different starting lines. You never go deep on anything because every tool restarts you at the beginning. So here is the honest fix. And it's less fun than downloading a new app every week. Make a plan before to start. Pick one path and follow it to the end before you do anything else. One structured way or one clear sequence that takes you from A to B in order, and let everything else be a supplement, not a replacement. It feels like you are missing out on the others, but you are not. Depth beats variety every time at the beginner level. The learners who break through aren't the ones with the most resources, they're the ones who actually finished one. Here's the question that catches a lot of people off guard. How many Russian words do you think you know? 100? Maybe 200? Now here's the harder question. How many of those can you actually use in a sentence right now without stopping to think? For a lot of stuck learners, that second number is painfully low, and I see it constantly. Someone has spent months building this big pile of vocabulary, flashcards, word lists, the app that drills 50 new words a week, and they genuinely know what dom means and хотеть and вода. But ask them to say, I want some water, out loud, and they go quiet. The words are all in there, just sitting in separate boxes, with no idea how to connect to each other. That's the problem with learning words on their own. A word by itself is just a fact. It's trivia. Language doesn't happen one word at a time, it happens in little combinations, in chunks. So if you only ever learn the isolated word, you end up with a head full of vocabulary you can recognize but you can't actually speak. And that gap is one of the most discouraging places to be stuck, because on paper you do know so much. So the fix is small, but it changes everything. Stop learning words and start learning tiny phrases. Never learn вода alone. Learn я хочу воды. I want some water. Never learn coffee alone. Learn можно кофе. Can I have some coffee? Semaphore, same 5 seconds, but now the word arrives already attached to other words the way you will actually use it. Do this and something nice happens. You stop collecting that vocabulary and you start building things you can say. And being able to say things, even tiny ones, is exactly what pulls you off the beginner plateau. I'm going to be honest, there's really a lot of ways to do that. On that matter, learning apps can help as well as watching vlogs for beginners or listening podcasts for beginners. Alright, this next one is sneaky because it's made of things that genuinely feel like studying. Watching Russian videos, listening to a podcast on your walk, doing the lesson, tapping the right answer, reading along, all good. But notice what each one of those has in common. You're only ever receiving. Input goes in, nothing ever has to come out. And I get why. Producing is uncomfortable. Speaking out loud when you're alone feels silly. Writing a sentence means you might get it wrong. So we hide in the comfortable side of learning, the side where we recognize, understand, and we quietly avoid the side where we actually have to make something. I have had students who could follow a whole conversation and then couldn't produce a single sentence of their own when I asked. That's not a knowledge problem. That's the producing problem. Because understanding Russian and producing Russian are two different things. You can pour in all the input in the world, but the part of your brain that builds a sentence only gets stronger when you make it work, when you reach for a word that is not there and you have to find it. Skip that, and you stay someone who understands a lot of Russian but still freezes the moment it's their turn to speak. So the fix is to force a little output every day from day one, and it can be tiny. Say it out loud what you did today, even in broken Russian. Write 2 sentences about your morning. Talk to yourself in the bathroom. It might feel awkward and clumsy, and that's not a sign you're bad at it. That's the exact moment the learning happens, because your brain is finally building instead of just absorbing. You can do also some shadowing practice. I recently made a video about it, by the way, and if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend checking it after finishing this one. I will let you the link in the description. You don't need to be ready and to master Russian before to start. You just need to start producing before you feel ready, because you never feel fully ready. The ones who get unstuck are simply the ones who started talking sooner. And if you have a partner to practice, that's even better. But in case you don't know any Russian, I did put a few recommended websites to find good pen pals to practice the Russian language in the PDF accompanying the video. Link in the description. And the fifth mistake is almost the opposite of the others. It's what happens to the too serious learners, the ones who really want to do it properly. Because if you're motivated, there is a very logical sounding voice that says, I need to build solid foundations. I should learn the grammar first, then I will be able to speak correctly. And it sounds so responsible that almost nobody questions it. So you open the grammar, and Russian grammar, let's be honest, is deep. Six cases, verbs of motions, aspects, genders, endings that change depending on what the word is doing in the sentence. You sit down on week 2 full of motivation and try to understand the case system before you can even say where you are from. And what happens? You get overwhelmed. It feels impossibly complicated. You decide you're just not good at languages, and that motivation you started with quietly drains away. I have watched it happen so many times. Grammar doesn't make these learners quit because it's so hard. It makes them quit because they met it at the wrong time. And I want to be really clear here, because this is important. I am not telling you grammar doesn't matter. It absolutely does. You will never become fluent in Russian without solid grammar. The cases, the structure, all of it. And at some point, you will have to roll up your sleeves and learn it properly. That's not optional. The mistake isn't learning grammar. The mistake is making it the first thing and the only thing before you can say anything at all. So here's the order I would follow. First, get A1, knowing some little phrases, the chunks, the basic sentences we talked about. Build a feel for the language in your mouth and your ear. Then, once you've got something to attach it to, you bring in the grammar. And here's the magic. It's 10 times easier. Because now the rules are explaining sentences you can already say instead of being abstract theory about a language you don't speak yet. Grammar makes sense fastest when it comes to organize what you already know, not when it comes first to build from nothing. So don't skip it, just don't lead with it. Speak first, then let grammar tighten it up. So those are the 5 mistakes. Fix them and you will stop spinning your wheels. I promise you will feel the difference within a couple of weeks. But here's the thing, stopping the bad habits is only the half of the way. Removing what's holding you back clears the road. It doesn't tell you how to actually drive forward. So the obvious next question is, once I've cut these mistakes out, what should I be doing instead? And I made a video for exactly that. In it, I break down the 4 habits that actually move you forward in Russian. The things my students who progress fast all have in common. So, this video showed you what to stop, and that one shows you what to start. Watch it next. It should be right here. And I will see you over there. Пока-пока.